Hello, my name is Paul Thomas Edward Cusick. I'm an engineer by education, but I do research in just about every area that universities teach in. I was invited to submit a talk on the nursing, and I noticed that psychiatric nursing was one of the subjects under consideration. So I have a paper on psychoses, LSD, and AT math, and that's what we're about to explore. It's a brief paper. There's only 18 slides, so it's a lot of boring math, I know, but bear with me, it's worth it. In this talk, we once again apply AT math from astrotheology to the problem of psychosis and serotonin levels. Depression and introversion are the first steps towards psychosis. For some, it develops into paranoid schizophrenia. In this talk, we show that psychosis develops with decreasing levels of serotonin. LSD mimics the serotonin molecule, and we'll see the molecules. At first, the serotonin produces a high or euphoria, then the molecule breaks down, leading to a decrease in energy in the brain. From the golden mean parabola, which is at the heart of astrotheology mathematics, the energy is zero when the roots t equals 1.618, the golden mean, and minus 0.618 are reached. This is when acute psychosis begins. These are the first steps in figuring out how psychosis develops from low serotonin levels. Patients suffering from psychosis have paranoid thoughts. A symptom is to stay away from other people. The lone wolf is prone toward introversion. They tend to suffer from depression. Depression is treated nowadays with selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, Prozac. It mimics the bottom half of the LSD molecule. People who take or are poisoned with LSD suffer from psychoses. In fact, LSD can be a trigger for long-term paranoid schizophrenia. I was actually poisoned with LSD, and I had schizophrenia, so I'm speaking as an expert here. I know what it's all about. So serotonin, if you notice this part of the molecule, this is the molecule for serotonin here, and this is the molecule for LSD, and they're the same. This molecule, this and this, same as this and this. So mass is equal to the ln of t, which is equal to the ln of 365, which is equal to 59 times Avogadro's number 6.023 is 42.16, which is 1 over 23.7. E to the t equals e to the m. When mass is equal to e to the t, raise both sides to e, end up with t equals e to the m. E to the m, e to the 23.7 is 2. And that's dm by dt. That's the rate of change of mass with respect to time. So if we take the golden mean probably here, t squared minus t minus t minus 1 equals 0 for e. That's the golden mean parabola. And I'll do the derivative now. 2t minus 1 equals 0. So t would be equal to, putting the 1 to the other side, t is equal to a half. dE by dt is equal to 1. Function equals derivative. As serotonin depletes, the psychosis increases. The serotonin molecule, C10H12N2O, the molecular mass is 1364 for that molecule. Multiplied by 6.023 is 8.215 grams. Mass is equal to the ln of t. T equals e to the m, I just showed y, equals e to the 8215 equals 369.7. So t squared minus t minus 1 equals e. So when t is equal to 369, we just plug that into the golden mean parabola. We get 1363, which is the molecular mass of serotonin. There it is there, molecular mass of serotonin. So that one and that one are the same. So E is equal to M is equal to the ln of T is equal to T squared minus 1 when we set the mass and energy equal. And so we have T squared minus T minus 1 equals ln of T. Take the derivative of both sides. We have 2T minus 1 equals 1 over T. The derivative of ln T is 1 over T. dE by dt, the derivative, is equal to 2t minus 1 equals e. dE by dt, the derivative of energy is equal to the function energy. Y equals y prime. Function equals the derivative. So here we have a plot of the serotonin levels. Excuse me. There we go. And we have the psychosis ln function. This is the exponential function, negative t to the power minus t. And this is the mass function, the ln function. And the critical points are here when t is 1 and t is pi. So when t is pi, it terminates. When t is 1, we end up with that 367, which we just saw. So when when they're equal, e to the minus t equals ln of t is 2.718, which is base e, right? 2.718. Just like pi, it's the number you just have to accept or remember. 2.718 squared minus 2.718 minus 1 is 367. So we see that, again, the 367 when e to the minus 1. So t is equal to 1 over e is equal to 2.718 e to the 1. So mass is equal to e to the 1. Mass is equal to ln of t. Ln of 1 is equal to 0. So, and we'll see more about this later on. 2 dE by dt, the derivative again is 2t minus 1. So if we just plug that time, 2.71828 into that function, we end up with 44.4, which is the cubit, the biblical cubit. It's the length of a man's forearm, 44.4 centimeters. And it's an interesting whole field as to why ancient people would have known about the biblical cubit, 44.4 centimeters. Anyway, it's equal to 4 over 9 is equal to m over c squared. The total energy is equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy. But kinetic energy is equal to time. Potential energy is equal to mass. So the time, kinetic energy, is just 1/2 mv squared or 1/2 mc squared. And potential energy is mass, which is equal to mc squared. So we end up with 1.5 mc squared. M is equal to t. T is equal to 1.5 tc squared equals this mc squared here. It becomes here. 1.5 t times equals m. 1.5 times the t value for t is equal to 407.7. E to the 8.21 is 2.272 is 1 over 44. T is equal to 4. E equals 1 over t, right? E equals 1 over t. Need to improve the technology here. So now we look at the bonds of that active part of the molecule. We have 4 double carbon bonds with a bond strength of 6.11 joules per bond times 4 bonds. Then we have 4 single bonds, carbon to carbon bonds, and 2 single nitrogen to carbon bonds. And you sum these up, it's 44.04, which we just seen is 1 over the energy, 1 over the enthalpy. The 1 over 44 is 1 over t equals E. 1 over 4/9 is equal to E. E is equal to 9 over 4, which is c squared over m. So c squared is equal to em equals et. C squared is equal to 1 over t times t. T's cancel, you end up with c squared equal to 1. C is the square root of 1, which is plus or minus 1. So c is the velocity, which is distance over time, we know from elementary physics, and ct is equal to d. We just cross multiply the t with the c. Ct equals d, and d is distance, which is position s, same thing. So we have t is equal to s, because c is 1. So we have C is equal to 1 is equal to E equals the enthalpy. And when energy is equal to 1, we know the golden mean parabola that time is equal to pi. Pi squared minus pi minus 1 is 57.29, which is equal to degrees, which is equal to 1 radian. So energy times time is equal to 1 over t times t. It's 1 over pi times t is 1 over pi. 1 over pi is the frequency of the human brain. 31.8 8 hertz. 1 over pi, frequency of the brain. So the frequency is disrupted with in psychoses, and it's disrupted with LSD. So there's a connection between this frequency of the human mind. When you have psychoses, it's like a film in a movie projector, and the film is loose, and it's flipping at the end, and it just flip, 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 and what you see on the screen is what it's like when you see in psychoses. It's very scary. The same thing can happen with LSD, is there's you end up with disrupting the frequency of the brain. So here's the golden mean parabola, and the important thing to note, well, it's first of all the function is t squared minus t minus 1 is e, and that gives us this parabola. And we know that the root is 1.618, that's when energy is 0, and minus 0.618, but this part doesn't matter because it's negative time. There's no such thing as negative time. So you can't have negative time. So you have, when you take the derivative of this 2t minus 1 and set it equal to 0, the derivative equals 0 is the minimum. And E minimum comes out to be minus 1.25. That's a critical factor that will be necessary to remember. So you have your double carbon bonds, 345 kilojoules per mole. Mass is equal to the ln of T, so the energy 345, T is equal to 1 over 345, which is equal to root 2. 2 times root 2 is equal to 2.8284, which is equal to 4 times 1 over root 2, which is the momentum, which is equal to mass times velocity. Momentum is equal to mv. And I'll tell you that force, we know from Newton, is equal to ma. They're both vectors. So when these are equal, the m's cancel, and v equals a, and there's where you have it, v equals a. That implies that y is y prime, because the derivative of sine is cosine. So the function equals the derivative. The derivative of velocity is acceleration. The rate of change of velocity is the acceleration. So it's all basic high school math, really, but people miss it, I guess. 345 times 6.023, Avogadro's number, is equal to 2077. Mass is equal to the ln of t. T is equal to e to the m, which is equal to minus 8. E equals 1 over t. 1 over minus 8 is minus 1.25. And we just saw that's equal to E min. So here we have the sine and cosine function. And this is the cosine function. Plot it. And this is the sine function for a complete cycle. We have time on this axis and energy on this axis. And when sine is equal to cos, the function equals the derivative, or velocity equals acceleration. This occurs when t is equal to pi by 4, or, which is 45 degrees. So if sine represents the infection and cosine represents the resistance, that's a critical point when time is equal to 45 degrees. It's equal to 1 over root 2. And it's a two-pole solution, so if we add the two of them together, the sine and the cosine at this point, we end up with root 2, which we just saw is the 1, 1, root 2 triangle. 1, 1, root 2 is a 45-degree triangle. So the herpes simplex virus incubation period. I contracted the herpes simplex virus from a friend there on purpose on around August 11th, 1989. And I had schizophrenia on February 11th, my birthday, 1997. That should be 1997. That's 7.5 years. So space is equal to time, which is equal to 7.5 years. Mass is equal to ln of t, equals to ln of 7.5, is equal to 2.01. So we see 2 cropping up again. That's when energy is equal to 1, right? 2 squared minus 2 minus 1 equals 1. So that conjures up y equals y prime. So that's the incubation period for herpes simplex virus, which is interesting, eh? For HSV1. And then we have space is equal to energy cross product of energy and time, which is the magnitude of E times the magnitude of T times sine theta. That comes out of linear algebra, and it's just saying there's two vectors, energy and time vector, and they have a third perpendicular vector which grows with the sine function as the vectors separate. So we work this out, and S is equal to 6.49. S is equal to 1 over 1.2478. That's almost equal to minus 1.25, which is the minimum energy. S is equal to 81. E equals 1 over S, because S is equal to T. E is equal to 1 over T. S is 1 over 81, which is an interesting number, 0.1234567.9. So it jumps by 1 for the first 8 decimals, and then it jumps by 2. So it's a 7th times 7 plus 2. And you end up with it cresting over, and that's an interesting number, 1 over 81. So we have 7 cycles of the Lon function, as I showed before. We have the Lon function like that. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 7 of those. So 7 of the Lon functions equal to 7 pi over 22, which is equal to 1, because pi is equal to 22 over 7. So T and E are equal to 1. Now for the full 7 cycles, 7 pi is equal to 21.99, it's approximately equal to 22. And I won't go into it too deeply, but there's the binomial distribution, and it's telescopic toward 2 to the power 22. Starts out here as 2 to the 0, which is 1. This is 2 to the 11th, and then it telescopes down into 2 to the power 22. But I won't go into any more of that. So T squared minus T minus 1 is equal to E equals 460. E equals energy equals mass equals the ln of T. T is equal to 1585, which is 1 minus the sine of 1, which happens to be the moment, which we know from astrotheology. So this 460 squared minus 460 minus 1 is equal to minus 1.248, almost equal to minus 1.25. Implies the golden mean parabola. So in conclusion, we see that AT math can be applied to mental illness, psychosis, as well as to LSD. AT math is a very powerful tool that should be in every researcher's tool bag, because it describes energy, space, mass, and time. And all the functions of the human body are subject to the laws of energy, space, mass, and time. So it's essential to know it. So there's the single reference if you want to get into AT math and learn more about it. In January of 2016, I wrote a paper called Astrotheology Cusick's Universe, and the references from there will lead you to literally 1,000 papers. So anyway, AT math is very exciting, very interesting, and it does apply as an application in biomedical research. I hope you've enjoyed the talk, and we'll do it again sometime soon. I don't know how much more math you want to hear, but anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for listening.